Hey guys, with our book chat for tonight, we're going to get all our links up. The bookstore, and also the Buy Me a Coffees. I always forget the Buy Me a Coffee links, but anyway. Hang on just a second here. All right. And the Buy Me a Coffee link. Okay. All right. Okay. So tonight, we're going to try to get a little more done in the book. I'm hoping to get through 2 chapters. We'll see. We're getting close, and this is, of course, the 26th. So I'm hoping to wrap this up here pretty soon. Mostly because my Christmas season has started, so it's getting busy. And so I will probably be needing to use this airtime for information about what's happening in the stores and that kind of thing pretty soon. Next week, I will put up the different books that I've been loading onto the bookstores, and also some things in the other store that is more of a collectibles thing. It's more of a what I find with books, with old books, and it's just accumulated. And some things I pick up for that, but sometimes not too. So anyway, so that's what's happening. So I'm going to try to get through hopefully 2 chapters. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, so my links to the stores are in the comments. So if you need a link, look in that. If you want to talk to me while I'm reading, that's fine. If you want to ask me a question, that's fine. I'll try to keep an eye on both. If you are interested in a book, I can see the comments, afterward too. If you're watching this on replay, it's fine. Just leave a comment and I can get back to you. So, a word or two of explanation about how it works with me. As a retailer, my season starts fairly early. So, as far as the Christmas season. Now, yes, we have Halloween and all that, and I do sell books, for Halloween and that kind of thing. So it's not just Christmassy things; it's people buying gifts for people. So and that's all year round, but it's just busier, of course, this time of year. So, so all the links should be in the comments. If you just want to tip me or help me pay for Restream I have to use because it will let me get to all of my social media outlets, which is, by the way, that is Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So I'm on all of those if you want to follow me on any of those websites and social media. I'm also on YouTube, which is actually going pretty well, to my surprise. I'm not trying, believe me, but because I don't have a lot of time. But yeah, it's going pretty well. Um, so so next week I will start advertising the new books and things that I've gotten in. They're not new, they're new old books, new stock. So I can let you know, just what I have. If you have questions or you're looking for something, let me know. Odds are I have it, or I might be able to find it for you. I can do that too sometimes. It just depends. So, yeah. So, and little commercial about Buy Me a Coffee. It's just like, I think it's like $5 increments or something, but it's just to help with costs that I incur when I do, these video chats, and people seem to like them, so that's why I keep doing it. So I'm on a little bit early tonight. Usually I'm on at 7:30, but I wanted a chance to get through as many chapters as I could so that we can wrap this book up. It's such a good book. I hate to not wrap it up, so that's my dilemma on it. So, all right. Well, I will go ahead and get started. Next week, I will probably go back to my regular time and we'll do a half hour. Hopefully, tonight I can get through, hopefully, at least a half hour, maybe 45 minutes. We'll see how it goes. So, like I said, if you guys want to ask me questions, feel free. I'll try to keep up with you guys on Instagram as well. And we'll get started. I've got my hot tea. My allergies are pretty bad right now, so bear with me. So we're on chapter 15. And I don't know if I'm going to need more light. I might need more light here. Okay. So chapter 15. Now I have to explain where we are in all of this. We are past the murder of Lynette Doyle, and we are in the process of them figuring out what happened and who did the murder and that kind of thing. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Colonel Race pored thoughtfully over a plan of the promenade deck of the Karnak. The Karnak is the boat that they were on when it happened. Fanthorpe, young Allerton, Mrs. Allerton, then an empty cabin, Simon Doyle's, who's on the other side of Mrs. Doyle's, the old American dame. If anyone heard anything, she should have. If she's up, we'd better have her along. Miss Van Skyler entered the room. She looked even older and yellower than usual this morning. Her small dark eyes had an air of venomous displeasure in them. Colonel Race rose and bowed. "We're very sorry to trouble you, Miss Van Skyler. It's very good of you. Please sit down." Miss Van Schuyler said sharply, I dislike being mixed up in this. I resent it very much. I do not wish to be associated in any way with this, very unpleasant affair. Quite. I was just saying to Monsieur Perrault that the sooner we took your statement the better, as then you would have no further trouble. Miss Van Schuyler looked at Perrault with something approaching favor. I'm glad you both realize my feelings. I am not accustomed to anything of this kind. Perrault said soothingly, Precisely, mademoiselle. That is why we wish to free you from the unpleasantness as quickly as possible. Now you went to bed last night at what time? 10 o'clock is my usual time. Last night I was rather late, as Cornelia Robson very inconsiderately kept me waiting. Très bien, mademoiselle. Now what did you hear after you had retired? Miss Van Schuyler said, I sleep very lightly. A merveille. That is very fortunate for us. I was awakened by that rather flashy young woman, Mrs. Doyle's maid, who said, bonne nuit, madame, in what I cannot but think an unnecessarily loud voice. After that, I went to sleep again. I woke up thinking someone was in my cabin, but I realized that it was someone in the cabin next door. In Madame Doyle's cabin? Yes. Then I heard something outside on the deck, and then a splash. You have no idea what time this was? I can tell you the time exactly. It was 10 minutes past 1. You are sure of that? Yes. I looked at my little clock that stands by my bed. You did not hear a shot? No, nothing of the kind. But it might possibly have been a shot that awakened you. Miss Van Schuyler considered the question, her toad-like head on one side. It might, she admitted rather grudgingly. And you have no idea what caused the splash you heard? Not at all. I know perfectly. Colonel Race sat up alertly. You know? Certainly, I did not like this sound of prowling around. I got up and went to the door of my cabin. Miss Otterborn was leaning over the side, and she had just dropped something into the water. Miss Otterborn? Race sounded really surprised. Yes. You are quite sure it was Miss Otterborn? I saw her face distinctly. She did not see you? No, I do not think so. Perrault leaned forward. And what did her face look like, mademoiselle? She was in a condition of considerable emotion. Race and Perrault exchanged a quick glance, and then, Race prompted, Miss Otterborn went away around the stern of the boat, and I returned to bed. There was a knock at the door, and the manager entered. He carried in his hand a dripping bundle. We've got it, Colonel. Race took the package. He unwrapped fold after fold of sodden velvet. Out of it fell a coarse handkerchief, faintly stained with pink, wrapped around a small pearl-handled pistol. Race gave Perrault a glance of slightly malicious triumph. You see, he said, he said, my idea was right. It was thrown overboard. He held the pistol out on the palm of his hand. What do you say, Monsieur Perrault? Is this the pistol you saw at the Cataract Hotel that night? Perrault examined it carefully. Then he said quietly, Yes, that is it. There is the ornamental work on it and the initials J.B. It is an article de luxe, a very feminine art production, but it is none the less a lethal weapon. 22, murmured Race. He took out the clip 2 bullets fired. Yes, there doesn't seem much doubt about it. Miss Van Skyler coughed significantly. And what about my stole? She demanded. Your stole, mademoiselle? Yes, that's my velvet stole you have there. Race picked up the dripping folds of material. This is yours, Miss Van Skyler? Certainly it's mine, the old lady snapped. I missed it last night. I was asking everyone if they'd seen it. Perrault questioned Race with a glance and later gave a slight nod of assent. Where did you see it last, Miss Van Skyler? I had it in the saloon yesterday evening. When I came to go to bed, I could not find it anywhere. Race said quietly, You realize what it's been used for. He spread it out, indicating with a finger the scorching in several small holes. The murderer wrapped it around the pistol to deaden the noise of the shot. Impertinence, snapped Miss Van Skyler. The color rose as was in her wizened cheeks. Race said, I shall be glad, Miss Van Skyler, if you will tell me the extent of your previous acquaintance with Miss Doyle. There was no previous acquaintance, but you knew of her? I knew who she was, of course. But your families were not acquainted? As a family, we have always prided ourselves on being exclusive, Colonel Race. My dear mother would never have dreamed of calling upon any of the Hart's family who, outside their wealth, were nobodies. That is all you have to say, Miss Van Skyler? I have nothing to add to what I have told you. Lynette Ridgway was brought up in England, and I never saw her till I came aboard this boat. She rose. Perrault opened the door for her, and she marched out. The eyes of the two men met. That's her story, said Race, and she's going to stick to it. It may be true, I don't know. But Rosalie Otterborn? I hadn't expected that. Perrault shook his head in a perplexed manner. Then he brought down his hand on the table with a sudden bang. But it does not make sense, he cried. It does not make sense. Race looked at him. What do you mean exactly? I mean that up to a point, it is all the clear sailing. Someone wished to kill Lynette Doyle. Someone overheard the scene in the saloon last night. Someone sneaked in there and retrieved the pistol. Jacqueline de Belfort's pistol, remember? Somebody shot Lynette Doyle with that pistol and wrote the letter J on the wall. All so clear, is it not? All pointing to Jacqueline de Belfort as the murderess. And then, what does the murderer do? Leave the pistol, the damning pistol, Jacqueline de Belfort's pistol, for everyone to find. No. He or she throws the pistol, that particularly damning hit of evidence, overboard. Why, my friend, why? Race shook his head. It's odd. It is more than odd, it is impossible. Not impossible, since it happened. I do not mean that. I mean that the sequence of events is impossible. Something is wrong. Okay, chapter 16. Colonel Race glanced curiously at his colleague. He had reason to respect the brain of Hercule Poirot. Yet, for the moment, he did not follow the other's process of thought. He asked no question, however. He seldom did ask questions. He proceeded straightforwardly with the matter in hand. What's the next thing to be done? Question the Otterborn girl? Yes, that may advance us a little. Rosalie Otterborn entered ungraciously. She did not look nervous or frightened in any way, merely unwilling and sulky. Well, she asked, what is it? Race was the spokesman. We're investigating Mrs. Doyle's death, he explained. Rosalie nodded. Will you tell me what you did last night? Rosalie reflected a minute. Mother and I went to bed early, before 11. We didn't hear anything in particular except a bit of fuss outside Dr. Bessner's cabin. I heard the old man's German voice booming away. Of course, I didn't know what it was all about until this morning. You didn't hear a shot? No. Did you leave your cabin at all last night? No. You are quite sure of that? Rosalie stared at him. What do you mean? Of course I'm sure of it. You did not, for instance, go round to the starboard side of the boat and throw something overboard? The color rose in her face. Is there any rule against throwing things overboard? No, of course not. Then you did? No, I didn't. I never left my cabin, I tell you. Then if anyone says that they saw you, she interrupted them. Who says they saw me? Miss Van Skyler? Miss Van Skyler, she sounded genuinely astonished. Yes, Miss Van Skyler says she looked out of her cabin and saw you throw something overboard. Rosalie said clearly, That's a damned lie. Then, as though struck by a sudden thought, she asked, What time was this? It was Perrault who answered. It was 10 minutes past 1, mademoiselle. She nodded her head thoughtfully. Did she see anything else? Perrault looked at her curiously. He stroked his chin. See, no, he replied, but she heard something. What did she hear? Someone moving about in Madame Doyle's cabin. I see, muttered Rosalie. She was pale now, deadly pale. And you persist in saying that you threw nothing overboard, mademoiselle? What on earth should I run about throwing things overboard for in the middle of the night? There might be a reason, an innocent reason. Innocent? Repeated the girl sharply. That's what I said, you see, mademoiselle. Something was thrown overboard last night, something that was not innocent. Race silently held out the bundle of stained velvet, opening it to display its contents. Rosalie Otterborn shrank back. Was that what she was killed with? Yes, mademoiselle. And you think that I did it? Rather utter nonsense. Why on earth should I want to kill Lynette Doyle? I don't even know her. She laughed and stood up scornfully. The whole thing is too ridiculous. Remember, Miss Otterborn, said Race, that Miss Van Skyler is prepared to swear she saw your face quite clearly in the moonlight. Rosalie laughed again. That old cat? She's probably half blind anyway. It wasn't me she saw. She paused. Can I go now? Grace nodded, and Rosalie Otterborn left the room. The eyes of the two men met. Race lighted a cigarette. Well, that's that. Flat contradiction. Which of them do we believe? Perrault shook his head. I have a little idea that neither of them was being quite frank. That's the worst of our job, said Race despondently. So many people keep back the truth for positively futile reasons. What's our next move? Get on with questioning of the passengers? I think so. It's always well to proceed with order and method. Race nodded. Mrs. Otterborn, dressed in floating batik material, succeeded her daughter. She corroborated Rosalie's statement that they had both gone to bed before 11 o'clock. She herself had heard nothing of interest during the night. She could not say whether Rosalie had left her cabin or not. On the subject of the crime, she was inclined to hold forth. The crime passionnel, she exclaimed, the primitive instinct to kill, so closely allied to the sex instinct. That girl Jacqueline, half Latin, hot-blooded, obeying the deepest instincts of her being, stealing forth, revolver in hand. But Jacqueline de Belfort did not shoot Madame Doyle. That we know for certain. It is proved, explained Perrault. Her husband, then, said Mrs. Otterborn, rallying from the blow. The bloodlust and the sex instinct a sexual crime. There are many well-known instances. Mr. Doyle was shot through the leg, and he was quite unable to move. The bone was fractured, explained Colonel Race. He spent the night with Dr. Bessner. Mrs. Otterborn was even more disappointed. She searched her mind hopefully. Of course, she said. How foolish of me. Miss Bowers. Miss Bowers? Yes, naturally. It's so clear psychologically. The repressed virgin, maddened by the sight of these two, a young husband and wife passionately in love with each other. Of course it was her. She's just the type, sexually unattractive, innately respectable. In my book, The Barren Vine, and then Colonel Race interposed tactfully. Your suggestions have been most helpful, Mrs. Otterborn. We must get on with our job now. Thank you so much. He escorted her gallantly to the door and came back wiping his brow. What a poisonous woman. Phew, why didn't someone murder her? It may yet happen, Perrault consoled him. There might be some sense in that. Whom have we got left? Pennington. We'll keep him for the end, I think. Ricchetti, Ferguson. Signor Ricchetti was very valuable, very agitated. But what a horror, what an infamy. A woman, excuse me, a woman so young and so beautiful, indeed, an inhuman crime. Signor Riccetti's hands flew expressively up in the air. His answers were prompt. He had gone to bed very early. In fact, immediately after dinner, he had read for a while a very interesting pamphlet lately published. Not sure what that is. It's in German. Throwing an entirely new light on the painted pottery of the Anatolian foothills. He had put out his light some time before 11. No, he had not heard any shot, not any sound like the pop of a cork. The only thing he had heard, but that was later in the middle of the night, was a splash, a big splash, just near his porthole. Your cabin is on the lower deck on the starboard side, is it not? Yes, that's so. And I hear the big splash. His arms flew up once more to describe the bigness of the splash. Can you tell me at all what time it was? Signor Ricchetti reflected. It was 1, 2, 3 hours after I go to sleep. Perhaps 2 hours. About 10 minutes past 1, for instance. It might very well be, yes. But what a terrible crime. How inhuman. So charming a woman. Exit Signor Ricchetti, still gesticulating freely. Colonel Race looked at Perrault. Perrault raised his eyebrows expressively, then shrugged his shoulders. They passed on to Mr. Ferguson. Ferguson was difficult. He sprawled insolently in a chair. Grand to do about this business, he sneered. What's it really matter? Lot of superfluous women in the world. Race said coldly, Can we have an account of your movements last night, Mr. Ferguson? Don't see why you should, but I don't mind. I mooched around a good bit, went ashore with Miss Robson. When she went back to the boat, I mooched around myself for a while, came back and turned in around midnight. Your cabin is on the lower deck, starboard side? Yes. I'm not up among I'm not up among the knobs. Did you hear a shot? It might only have sounded like the popping of a cork. Ferguson considered. Yes, I think I did hear something like a quark. I can't remember when before I went to sleep. But there were still a lot of people about then, commotion, running about on the deck above. That was probably the shot fired by Mr. Belfort. You didn't hear another? Ferguson shook his head. Nor a splash? A splash? Yes, I believe I did hear a splash. But there was so much row going on that I can't be sure about it. Did you leave your cabin during the night? Ferguson grinned. No, I didn't, and I didn't participate in the good work. Worse luck. Come, come, Mr. Ferguson. I don't behave childishly. The young man reacted angrily. Why shouldn't I say what I think? I believe in violence. But you don't practice what you preach, murmured Perrault. I wonder. He leaned forward. It was the man Fleetwood, was it not, who told you that Lynette Doyle was one of the richest women in the world? In England? What's Fleetwood got to do with this? Fleetwood, my friend, had an excellent motive for killing Lynette Doyle. He had a special grudge against her. Mr. Ferguson came up out of his seat like a jack-in-the-box. So that's your dirty game, is it? He demanded wrathfully. Put it on to a poor devil like Fleetwood who can't defend himself, who's got no money to hire lawyers. But I tell you this, if you try and saddle Fleetwood with this business, you'll have me to deal with. And who exactly are you? Asked Perrault sweetly. Mr. Ferguson got rather red. I can stick by my friends, anyway, he said gruffly. Well, Mr. Ferguson, I think that's all we need for the present, said Race. As the door closed behind Ferguson, he remarked, unexpectedly, rather a likable young cub, really. You don't think he is the man you are after? Asked Perrault. I hardly think so. I suppose he is on board. The information was very precise. Oh, well, one job at a time. Let's have a go at Pennington. And that will end tonight's reading. Next week we will have, let's see, chapter 17? Chapter 17. And that is getting very close to the end. I'm trying to think if I can get through, well, let's see, if I could get through 2 chapters, depending if they're small, I might be able to get through 3. Maybe I can get through 3 chapters next week. And then we can wrap this up. But I will have to start doing some talking about the stores and things that I've gotten going and what's happening and that kind of thing. So, and just to let you know, the books are selling. If you want anything in particular, do not wait. I'm advising people to not wait really long if there is a book, and most of my books you can't find copies of. So with that in mind, just make sure that you, in fact, I'll write that in the comments. Don't wait. Okay, there we go. Anyway, that's my point, is do not wait to buy something, because odds are you won't be able to get it or it'll be too expensive somewhere else. I will work with people. I don't have sales going on yet, really, but I will be having some sales. But I will work with people even before I have sales. So I just want to make sure that people know that, and that we are able to get people what they want before Christmas. So, okay. Um, and I hate to harp on Christmas in September, but these things go fairly fast. So, okay. So I will leave you for tonight. Instagram, thank you for being live with me and for listening. And if you guys are wanting to keep up on things, follow me on Twitter. I am RA Bookfinders on Twitter. If you want to join our Facebook, if you're on Facebook, it is, of course, Rare and Antiquarian Bookfinders. You should be able to find me on there. And I'm on Biblio, I'm on Abe Books. We are on LinkedIn. I mean, we're about everywhere. We're on Instagram. We are RA Bookfinders on Instagram as well. So so any of those. But if you want to be updated on what I'm listing, Twitter is probably the best, because everything goes through Twitter, including the collectibles store. So, all right. Well, I'm going to let you go for tonight. If you're on the replay, feel free to comment if there's something you want to know about bookstore wise, and otherwise have a great week, and we will be here at 7:30 next week. Okay,